again, 94, being 3 years old, not knowing much of anything, they pretty much told everybody in Cuba, like, hey, you don't like the way shit's going? Go, take off. My parents were like, wait, what? El Mariel had already happened a couple years back. My parents didn't take that opportunity, so my dad was like, listen, I'm diving full force. Everybody was like, hey, you're crazy. The catch was no kids can go. It's only adults. So anybody that's 18 and over, you don't like it, there's the door. My dad was like, hey, I'm leaving. I'm taking my wife, I'm taking my son, and anybody else that wants to come with me. If you guys want to come, you're more than welcome to. If not, we're not staying. My aunts, my uncles, cousins, everybody of, all the family was like, don't take Rolly, leave him here. That's crazy. How are you going to do that? He's 3 years old. They were like, hey, if I die, we all die. It's all for one and one for all, pretty much. And dude, he built the raft with his friends, and I want to tell you, it was about 17 or 18 people on that raft, not including me. So I was like an extra little peanut. Yeah. And man, we left at early, late hours of the night. I want to say, or early hours of the night, because it was like maybe 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I remember just pulling out of the beach, dude, in that raft with my parents. My grandmother was with us, my mom's mom, and it was nuts, bro. They carried me out in a freaking bag. I'll never forget that. It was like a black, big duffel bag, and my mom just zipped it closed for the most part and left like a little opening in the top where I had my nose sticking out, and she threw a little freaking cloth over it and just carried me. And she's like, Rolly, don't move, don't talk. Nobody can know you're in here.
Oh my
Quiet.
God.
Puts me in there, bro. Next thing I know, cut scene. And I'm in the freaking raft just pulling away from freaking the shore, and I see my aunt's car with my dad's sister and my uncle. They're like flashing their headlights at us, and I see, we're getting further and further away, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm just 3 years old. Like, I'm like, oh, this is different. I've never been, but whatever. My mom freaking sedates the crap out of me. I knock out, cut scene again, wake up. It's like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Sun's shining bright, blue waters as far as the eye can see, not a lick of fucking land anywhere. And I'm like, oh crap. Hey, what are we doing? What's up? In the raft that my dad built, he had done in the back like a little chain link fence enclosure, kind of like think like a shark cage, kind of like halfway submerged in the water. So there was like maybe 2 feet, 2.5 feet of water in that little cage, but it's all chain link, fencing.
Did it have a bottom too?
It had a bottom, yeah.
Okay, so all enclosed.
All enclosed.
Okay.
And that was my pool. That was my hangout area.
Wow.
Like,
what an innovation for a raft.
Dude, I mean, my dad's, bro, I don't think you'll ever come up with something that great again.
That's amazing.
And dude, I remember just hanging out in there. We had barrels, 55-gallon barrels of water for us to drink and stuff. And they stuck me in the little pool in the back, that enclosure. I was there for the better part of the day. My mom putting on sunscreen, feeding me little snacks and stuff. And eventually they pulled me out of there, and they're like, oh, we got to rinse him off. He's all salty and stuff. And everybody was like, hey, he's a kid. What's the worst that could happen? Put him in the 55-gallon drinking water drum. And everybody's like still drinking out of the water later. They're like, you can't even taste the salt. It's fine. And dude, that went on for the better part of that day. And I want to say close to the evening, still sun was pretty up. It wasn't getting dark just yet. We come across a Coast Guard ship. And they're like, hey, immediately they stopped us and they told us, listen, we gotta pick you guys up and take you. This is crazy. We can't let you, be out here. You probably don't have any direction. You don't even know where you're headed.
Yeah.
So they boarded the ship, the Coast Guards, and they're like, listen, get on. We're gonna throw a ladder down for you guys to get on. Give us the kid. We're gonna take him up. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I remember this. You would think like a 3-year-old wouldn't remember, but it was so much. And so fast that, dude, it's like a core memory. It just is I don't want to say it's traumatizing, because I still love the ocean. I go out to the ocean. Like I love the water. That nothing in my perspective changed in respect to the ocean and being out there at all whatsoever. But it's something that sticks with you, man. And I just remember I was like, dude, I am not going with anybody. I looked at my dad and I was like, Papa, I'm going with you, And my dad's like, listen, you gotta hold on. Aguántate. I remember holding on to the back of my dad's neck, and he's like, hey, not so tight. Like I was squeezing for dear life. And just my dad climbed that ladder. As soon as we got up to the top of the ship, bro, I'll never forget. They gave us a little pair of sandals, the ones that you stick your fingers
thong
through,
sandals.
the thong sandals.
Yeah.
And mine were too long, so my dad had to get them cut and figure it out. And they gave us a Gatorade, an orange one and a green Gatorade. I grabbed the orange Gatorade. My dad grabbed the green one. Boom, we drank. They took us to another ship, which was like a bigger Coast Guard ship. They called like un buque madre, which it's like just a large, not a carrier, but somewhat of like a carrier type ship where they just had, bro, all of these freaking Cubans packed in there. Yeah. And that ship took everybody to Guantanamo Bay.
So did you know that they were going to pick you up?
No. So Cubans are like, they had the idea. They're like, okay, yeah, people are leaving. Coast Guard's picking some of these people up. Some people are making it, but you didn't know what your outcome was going to be. You didn't know if you were going to crash into the Keys or pull up to Miami, or if you were going to get picked up by the Coast Guard.
Sure.
So it was just like, hey, we'll see what happens type of thing.
Sure.
So we got picked up by the Coast Guard and we got taken to Guantanamo Bay. Once we pulled up there, it's just imagine a huge encampment, a bunch of tents, dirt roads, like, and everybody just packed in there. Bathrooms were all a line of porta potties. Showers were a couple of copper pipes running through the top of a tent, going into like little sections and with shower heads on them. Like that was it.
That's crazy.
That was it. They pretty much gave them the meat and potatoes, and they're like, all right, survive, just make it happen. And we didn't last there very long, thanks to me. I was the youngest kid. Imagine, they didn't let any kids out. So I was 3 years old, the youngest kid. They had taken some other kids out as well, but they were much older than I was. I think the next kid in line, age-wise after me, was probably like 9 years old already. So you're still a kid, but much older kid. And I started getting really sick. I was asthmatic. I had problems with my breathing, and the doctor was seeing me almost every day for better part of like a month, month and a half that we were there. The doctor pretty much talked to the higher ups, and he was like, hey, listen, you guys got to get this kid out of here. He's gonna fucking die. Mm-hmm. If we don't get him out, we're gonna have a whole nother list of problems on our hands, because we're gonna have a dead kid in here, and this kid's 3. Yeah. This is not good for business.
Yeah.
They picked up my mom, and they're like, hey, listen, you and your son can leave.
Dad?
She's like, what about my husband?
Yeah.
I can't do that to my husband. Okay. Husband can come. My husband was like, okay, but what about my mother-in-law? Yeah. I can't leave the mother. I kid you not. I kid you not. What about?
17 people?
Everybody left.
Bro, that's
They put
crazy.
us all in a freaking plane, and they pushed us over to Panama, because back then they had a deal with Panama and with Cuba and Guantanamo Bay, where they were putting these immigrants as they were coming out to kind of like funnel them into the country, because it was too much too fast, and there was really nowhere to put them here. So they took us to Panama. Panama, we had over there my grandfather, my mother, my mom's sister with my aunt, some cousins, other part of the family that had left a little earlier on another raft, done the same ordeal, but they had ended up taking them to Panama. So once we got there,
they went direct to Panama.
They went direct to Panama, because they really was like a
no
lottery.
System.
There was no system, dude. It's like, all right, we're picking you up. All right, this ship was headed that way. You're going to Panama. This ship was headed that way. You're gonna go to freaking Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
So we get to Panama. We meet up. We find out that the rest of the family's there, and we talk to a pastor of a local church, and he kind of like finds the rest of our family and unites everybody and brings us all together. And that was great, because it was for the first time in like over 2 months that everybody got to see each other, know that everybody was safe, and everybody made it. So that was great. But once again, Panama strikes, the same ordeal. Dirt roads, coughing. I start getting sick as hell again. And the doctor in Panama says, hey, this guy's got to go. But from the experience already of, them knowing that, hey, what about? They were like, listen, just the entire family. They were already sending people. So they kind of expedited all of our documents and all of our paperwork and said, okay, next plane that's out, this whole family has to go. And that's how it worked out, man. They threw us on a plane. I think we lasted maybe 6 weeks in Panama, threw us on a plane, the entire family, and we flew into Homestead Air Base, where we had my mom's cousins and aunts waiting for us that they already lived here in Miami,
Wow.
and they were the ones that picked us up. And
Was it
they
like
were
a
so
regular
welcoming.
passenger plane, or was it like a
Yeah,
military plane?
No,
or
it's a
some sort?
regular passenger plane.
Wow.
Regular passenger plane. That was my first time ever on an airplane, and I barely remember. I just kind of remember, walking up and down the aisle once they let us take our seatbelts off and talking to everybody. Like, I mean, it was an adventure for me, man. All these new things that I had never seen before and experiencing, and I had pretty much my entire family there and everybody that I knew there. So maybe that's one of the things that helped in it not being like traumatizing to me, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't be able to really dig that deep and figure it out, but I would say it was definitely an experience nonetheless.
I can't even imagine, man.
Yeah, bro.
I mean, going through that, and like myself, I've never been through that struggle or anything like that. And there's a gentleman named Gary Vaynerchuk. Do you know Gary Vaynerchuk?
Absolutely.
So Gary V, he's big on like the immigrant mindset,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then he says, so his family came from like Belarus or something, but he attests a lot of his entrepreneurship skills to similar events, like the struggle, the stuff you go through, all the things you have.
Absolutely,
and then you're just so grateful on the other side because you realize, oh, hey, I came from that, went through this, and this. I was out on a raft with 17 people in the middle of the ocean, 3 years old. My family's trying to do anything they can to get me here.
Yeah,
like
it's
that makes a
crazy.
different type of appreciation, bro.
Coming into trauma, and I like to say, trauma is, it could be a real thing, but it's all in here, man.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the conductor of everything up here, and you're the head honcho, commander in chief, you can zero yourself in, dude, and kind of push aside those clouds and those barriers, because at the end of the day, I think it's just a lot of up here, man.
Yeah.
And whether you need to get some help and from somebody else, and that's fine, or you can kind of zero in yourself and get dialed in. But I think that's really what it is, more than anything.
100%.
Absolutely. So definitely, bro, getting here, like I said, I think one of my traumas with the horror deal was not the ocean, not the raft, not any of that. I remember getting here and telling my mom, when I would see chain link fences, I'd be like, oh man, I hate those things. It reminds me of Guantanamo. It reminds me of Panama, and that was actually my thing for like the better part of like the first 3-4 years when I first got here. I'd be like, no, those chain link fences, I don't want to see those things. And it was like the dumbest thing ever, because you'd be like, dude, out of all the other stuff you faced, you're upset about seeing chain link fences. But again, I think maybe it was like the horror deal of saying shit, and I'm making this realization literally right now with you right here.
It's great, man.
It's like maybe just seeing all those freaking fences up and not being able, not knowing that I couldn't, go about and do whatever I wanted.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's a representation of a lack of freedom.
Exactly.
I feel like that's exactly what
that
it
was
is.
like a representation for me of a lack of freedom, that I didn't even know I was yearning for that freedom.
Yeah.
Per se, but then connecting the dots today, right here with you right now, it's like shit. Once I got here, I remember being so annoyed every time I saw those fences, and now it clicks. It had to be that,
That's interesting.
seeing those 6, 8, 10-foot fences, and when you're a peanut 3 years old, they're
Those
probably
are
6
huge.
feet and they look like they're 30.
Yeah.
So you're like seeing that and not knowing you can go beyond that. I remember asking, hey, what's on the other side? Can we go there? Can we do that? No, we got to stay here. We can't go over there. I think that was one of my biggest traumas, and I mean, I'm well over that already, but I think that was it for me,
crazy, bro.
knowing that lack of freedom was there and that I couldn't, go out and about. And not that I knew much about freedom. I was 3 years old, for crying out loud, but
Just options.
just options. Yes,
Like,
just options.
I feel like in life in general, just the ability to have options is such a luxury, particularly to today. And I think that money brings a lot of options.
Absolutely.
So that's one avenue to look at it. But yeah, that's crazy, man. I can't even
Dude.
imagine going through that. So that's really cool to hear
Yeah, man.
that story. You know what I mean?
So that was getting here. Once we were here, it was all boots on the ground. My parents started hustling, started working to kind of make ends meet and get it figured out. Pretty quickly they were able to get an apartment for themselves. We moved out and started living our own life. And, my dad just started, figuring out what he was good at. He ended up getting a job and working at Brinks. I don't know if you heard of them before. It's
As the armored truck?
the armored trucks,
Yeah.
correct. So he ended up scaling there and becoming the supervisor in the ball. I mean, again, this entailed to 80-hour weeks. This guy was barely home. But he made it happen, and broke his back and worked hard for us to be able to live somewhat of the American dream. And this is a guy that, rewinding a little bit and going back to Cuba, this is a guy that ran a gas station in Cuba. He didn't own it, but he pretty much ran the whole shop. And in businesses back then in Cuba, there was a lot of freedom, if you get my drift, and you could make a lot of money on the side with this, with that. So my dad was very well off over there. So leaving all of that behind and being so comfortable, but knowing that wasn't going to last forever, and that wasn't a long-term valuable thing for him to do, brought him over here. So then coming over here and having to make a readjustment, and I still see it every day today. There's people that come and come to this country from Cuba today, and it's like, dude, they want to do what they were doing over here, and that's just not going to cut it. So my dad coming and making that adjustment and working those 80-hour weeks and sleeping at work to not even, waste the time of driving back home. I mean, ridiculous, dude. So making that adjustment and being so faithful to that and knowing that, hey, this is my only option. This is how I'm going to take my family ahead in life. It's incredible.
That's admirable.
It's admirable because not every man is going to do that.
Yeah.
Given the circumstances. So, that went ahead. My parents ended up buying their first home. We got here in 94. My parents, hustled real hard, ended up buying their first home in 97. And that's where I lived the better part of my, young years. I think I was about 11 years old when my mom, with her gypsy spirit,
where did they
that was Hialeah Gardens. Well,
Okay.
Hialeah Gardens, right there in the border. That's where they bought the home.
Okay.
I went to Hialeah Gardens Elementary School, and right after Hialeah Gardens Elementary, I went to Matter Academy, and I want to say, my mom had always had a gypsy heart inside of her because, and funny enough, like I was mentioning to you, she has a gypsy heart. I ended up marrying a girl named Gypsy, so I don't know how that worked out. But so she was like a gypsy at heart, and she's like, listen, I don't like Miami. Both her and my dad had studied abroad in Germany while they were in Cuba. So they kind of had like this different lifestyle that they had seen and been a part of. And they're like, not really my dad so much, he loved it here, but my mom was like, oh, I want something different, Miami. I feel like I'm just in Cuba with things. And possibilities and opportunities, but it still feels like Cuba. So we went on. I remember we had a summer vacation that we went to Blizzard Beach, and I started jamming it up with this kid and playing. My mom ends up talking
Where's
to her
Blizzard
parents. Blizzard Beach is Orlando.
Okay.
Right? It's one of the Disney parks, but it's a water park.
Okay.
So middle of summer, hot as hell, scorching heat. We hit the water park, and I start jamming it up with this kid there that, super cool kid. We start playing, having fun. And my mom starts talking to his parents. Turns out this kid lives in Connecticut, a small town in Connecticut called Bethel. His mom and dad start telling my mom all these stories and wonders about the place, and my mom is like eating it all up because she's like, fuck yeah, I mean, I hate Miami, I'm ready for something different.
Yeah.
So these things that they're telling her about this place in an essence resemble a little of, her time in Germany and, her thinking of, the winters and the snow and the small town and jumping on a train to go here and doing that. She's like thinking, oh man, this was my youth in Germany, and kind of just like reliving all of that. So she goes back home, tells my dad, hey, I heard about this great place called Bethel, Connecticut. I really think we should go check it out. She had always been talking about moving and leaving Miami. And long story short, she picks up everything in the house. I'll never forget, dude. U-Haul boxes, and back then they sold this green saran wrap at U-Haul. I don't know if they still got it, or maybe it's orange now or clear or whatever. But back then it was green. And bro, we just saran wrapped all the stuff. I remember just 2 rooms, my room and my sister's room, just stacked
That's
to the
crazy.
top with boxes. And we picked up our essential things, jumped in the cars, and drove up north. And I remember my mom she kept their contact information and stuff, but she never called them and said what she was thinking about doing or thinking about visiting. Nothing. Picks up everything, we jump in the car, drive 95 north.
That's crazy.
Fast forward to like 3 days later, we make it to Connecticut. My mom picks up the phone, it's like, let me call this guy. Tell them, hey, what's up? I can't even remember what the guy's name was now. And hey, we're here. I remember it was a market called Stu Leonard's. We had just pulled up to a supermarket and it was right there in the town of Bethel. She's like, oh, I'm here. Remember me? So and so. He's like, oh yeah, hey, how are you? I didn't think you'd ever call. Whatever. Oh, you didn't think you'd ever call. Hey, hold on to your boots. It gets better.
We're actually here.
We're here. Wait, here where? Oh, in Bethel. We're at the local Stu Leonard's. And he's like, oh crap. So he shares his address with us, for us to go by and kind of, touch base and talk to them. He had told my mom a bunch of beautiful things. He told my mom that he owned the building where he was a restaurant owner. He owned a pizzeria. He owned the building where the restaurant was. So he's like, oh, I own the building where the restaurant is. I got my own home. We have a nice lot with a horse and this and that. And, great things. My wife drives a Mercedes Benz. I got a brand new, I think, I don't remember if he said like a GMC or like a Tahoe.
Sure.
They were well off.
Yeah.
Apparently, we pull up to the pizza place. It was in the neighborhood, a corner house, which looked like a house, but it had a sign outside that said the pizza name's place, Mia Sophia. I'll never forget that. And it's funny because if these people ever watch this, they're going to see my perspective, my side of the story.
Yeah.
So we pulled up and I remember we seen like this old skinny looking horse, falling apart in the neighbor's lot. And my grandma was like always joking about stuff and trying to find the lighter side. And my grandma was like, hey, I don't see a Mercedes. And I don't see a new car. And this building looks like a house that they made a pizzeria in the first floor. And, we're just kind of connecting the dots. And then my grandma's like, oh, yeah, look. And I don't see any horses here because he said he had horses. I mean, unless it's that one horse and the Mercedes, where is it? She's like, oh, I get it. The horse's name is Mercedes. And she goes, Mercedes, bang! Like, Mercedes come. Yeah. Sounds like Mercedes Benz, right? She's like, that's it. That's it. So that was super hilarious, man. And, we found out that he wasn't as well off as he said he was. But, he did own the building where the pizza place was because it was his house. So there was some truth to it. So, fast forwarding a little bit, we ended up starting school there. I went to the same school because Bethel was really small. So Bethel had an elementary, a middle school, and a high school. And all these kids knew each other, man. They went from the local daycare to kindergarten, middle school, high school. Like these guys stuck through together. And, I got up in the school there. I remember one of the other things that pushed my mom to move over there was that my sister was young and, I'm a big guy. My sister's big too. We were big kids.
How tall are you?
And I'm 6'2".
6'2".
And my sister, is a big girl. My sister now, she's 8 years younger than I am, but my sister's my size. Probably right there, if anything, with her hair. Yeah.
For
anything,
real?
She's like maybe a little taller.
That's crazy.
With her hair in some sort of way sometimes because she's got a lot of volume. But
my girlfriend's pretty tall too. She's 5'11", but 6'2". That's crazy.
Dude, my sister, I'll try to show you a picture afterwards so you can see we're like,
that's crazy.
There, dude. Yeah, it's incredible. So my mom was like, hey, listen, I got to get this girl started in school sooner than later because if they hold her back, so in Dade County back then, if your birthday was in November, you had to wait until the following school year just because of the way they had it set up. So in essence, my sister belonged in that class, but they were making her start in the following class. So my mom is like, damn, she's already a big kid. If she doesn't start with this one, then she's already going to be the biggest one in the class when she starts there. Next year, it's going to be even worse. So that was also one of the propellers for her to move to Bethel. So I started school. My sister started school. That lasted maybe, I want to say, 4 or 5 months. It wasn't much. I hated it, dude. I'd cry every day. I tried to make the best out of it. But imagine, you come into a group of people where everybody knows each other. And it was great at first because I started connecting, with some of the people that I got along with. And some kids were pretty freaking cool, man. Amazing. I met some amazing people there. A lot of the girls that I spoke to, they were super nice and friendly. But again, that created a lot of like jealousy and resentment from some of these people. They're like, hey, who the hell is this guy that just came out of nowhere that all these girls are paying attention to and some of these guys are paying attention to and, want to hang out with and do things with because he's from Miami. So they, I got bullied. I got, it was a crash course.
Different environment.
It was a different environment. And I wasn't used to any of these things because coming from where I came from, I mean, everybody knew me. Everybody knew who I was. I was, not the most popular guy in the world, but, I knew a lot of people and it was a totally different environment. So after like 4.5, 5 months of, crying every day almost, hating it, wanting to come back home, I remember one day I'm just sitting up in my room, just watching TV. I don't remember what I was doing, but I hear a knock on the door. It's like, who the hell is here? Nobody comes and visits us here. Like that doesn't happen. And then the door opens and I hear, Rolly, dale, coge tus cosas que nos vamos. My grandfather had driven all the way up from Miami with his car and a dolly in the back, because to top things off, my grandma's car, her engine blew in that whole fiasco when we were up there. And my grandpa drove up with a dolly, picked up my grandma's car, picked up all her things, and took us back to Miami. But funny enough, when he first pulled in, I remember jumping out of my bed and seeing him, and I was like, what? Let's go right now? No, don't turn right back around and let's get the heck out of here. I know the way back. And, he was like, hey, chill, not so fast. I promise we're going back. We're going to take a day or two, but we're going back. Pick up all your stuff. You're not going to school anymore. We're going back.
That's crazy.
And that was great, man. We moved back to Miami. Luckily, my mom had just packed up the house, like I said, and, we got home, did some unpacking, started living our lives again. But that didn't last very long.
So you were mentioning, that gypsy spirit, kind of moving around and just getting situated in that new school, for example. So when I was growing up, I went to 3 different elementary schools, and I was always the new kid at that school.
How's that, huh?
It was interesting because I feel like my town was small enough. Our town was probably 60,000 people. So it was small enough to where through sports or all those other events and just my mom and all these things, I knew almost a couple of kids at each school.
So you can
So it was
get connected.
It was navigable, if that's a word.
Yeah.
I could navigate it to some extent. But I went from farm town, wake up at 4 a.m., go feed the cows, do the cow shit.
Dude, that's crazy.
I went from there till 3rd grade, I think. Then I went 4th and 5th grade at Bannock Elementary, which was back into the city. So we moved out into the country till 3rd grade. Then I moved back into the city, and then from there I went to a different school for just 6th grade.
Wow.
So that was elementary, and then middle school was 7, 8, 9 for us because we had a senior high school.
Got it.
So 1 middle school and then 1 high school. But it happened around I don't know, 5th and 6th grade was a lot more fun than being super young. But I enjoyed being the new kid in the 6th grade because it was hey, who's this guy? Who's the new kid?
Yeah.
He's a good-looking kid.
Absolutely,
all the girls are oh, hey.
Yes, that's kind of what I was saying, my experience in Bethel too, when I first went, because, I remember, dude, I had never heard this in my life before. And I remember a girl telling me, she's like, oh my God, you're from Miami? You, verbatim, this is what she said. Oh my God, you're from Miami? Your cars have Florida plates? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. And I go, what do you mean? Why is that crazy? Florida's a state in our country. Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, I love your accent. I was like, what accent? What are you talking about? I don't have an accent. I speak perfect English. Fast forward, I'm like, shit, yeah, I do have an accent.
Yeah.
You don't even notice because you live here and everybody talks the same way I do.
Yeah.
So I don't really consider myself having an accent. Yeah. But when I kind of lived over there and I saw it, I was like, holy crap, yeah, I get it. I see it now. So that was funny, man. That's it's different. And I did enjoy that, but again, since it was such a small town and I didn't know anybody, I kind of got brought in from, put into the middle of nowhere from Miami. There was a lot of haters, man. And a lot of kids were like, oh, who's this guy that all these girls are paying attention to now, want to hang out with? And I remember my friends through those couple of months were all chicks. I was hanging out with all these chicks and going over their houses and their moms. I remember even one time, bro, I'll never forget this. I was hanging over one girl's house. Her name was Brianna. And I was there. She was, her mom was there, and another 2 girls from school were there too. Can't remember their names now. And one of these kids came over. One of these kids that were bullying me and being, a pain in the ass to me in school. And I remember even once where I called them out, out in dismissal. The principal, the assistant principal was there, and I told him, hey, listen, I'm not gonna take it anymore. If this guy tells me one more thing, it's gonna get physical. Because I kept putting my head down and trying to be the nice guy, and I'd see him over there, and I'd turn the corner to avoid the problems because I was like, hey, I got here the other day. Yeah. If I start an issue here, I'm the bad guy. Yeah. Who these people gonna believe? Yeah. The kid they know since he was in diapers, or this fucking guy that showed up out of nowhere. So I had all odds stacked against me. Yeah. So that was that. But I did enjoy that. In a little sense of it, seeing, that, oh, it's a new guy, all this, excitement and buzz around. That was awesome, bro.
Yeah,
It was
dude.
awesome. So definitely, I know where you're coming from with that. That was definitely good, man.
That's wild.
So yeah, Bethel packed up, came back.
Yeah.
That didn't last very long. I want to say about
Being back in Miami.
being back in Miami. Yeah, it didn't
Okay.
last very long. My mom's name should have been Gypsy, and my wife's name should have been something else. She, we unpacked everything, and my dad had a niece that had lived here in Miami all her life, but had recently moved to Cape Coral, and there was a huge boom going on in Cape Coral. I remember seeing the commercials on TV, on cable TV, oh, move to Cape Coral, buy a lot, properties are cheap, this and that, yada, yada, yada. And a lot of Miamians were feeding into that and hooking and booking. They were selling their houses here and moving. And my mom was like, oh, they bought a house over there. I remember, I'll never forget, we went over one weekend to stay at their house and just check the place out. We came back, and on the drive back, my mom was like, I love it. My dad was like, yeah, it's nice, it's different, whatever. That's all it took. My mom started packing up the house again, but this time it was for real. She packed up the house, put a for sale by owner sign on it, sold the freaking house.
So when you went to Bethel, you didn't sell the house, but
No.
this time you're selling
But
it.
this time we're selling it. She's like, oh, I feel more confident in this move. We're staying in Florida. We're just changing up the scenery a little bit. It's, this is going to be great, this and that. I'm a kid. My parents always gave me the, how can I say, the illusion of me making decisions, but I really wasn't making these decisions, like in what they decided they were gonna do, they'd give me some options. And whatever I decided was golden, that's what we were gonna do. But I had a roadmap already. It wasn't like, oh, no, I don't wanna do that and I wanna do this. No. We're gonna do this, and within this, what would you prefer, this or that? So it's nice to have some kind of a say, but ultimately,
I feel like that's an old trick in the book.
that's
It's
the
like,
oldest trick in the
just
book.
make them feel important, like they're making a decision.
Yes. And we made the move, but this time it was like, balls deep.
That's crazy.
It was all in. And I'll never forget, dude, we were driving that 26-foot U-Haul truck, the biggest one that they rent, and it was me and my dad driving, pulling out of our old neighborhood here in Hialeah. And we just looked at each other and we were just, bawling, crying, and knowing that, we were in store for a huge life change. Imagine, my dad had worked his whole life at Brinks. Going over there was no opportunities for him of that sort because my dad didn't speak a lick of English. The only reason he was so great at what he did down here was because, he knew the ins and the outs of the job, but everything was in Spanish. Mm-hmm. And whatever English stuff he needed was maybe for some minor paperwork, which he had memorized already, and it was second nature to him.
Yeah.
So we moved over there, bought a house over there. My parents, they left very well off. They had some money from the sale of their house. So I want to say things were okay at that point, but nobody really gauged or expected to see what was coming in 2008. Because we made this move, I want to say, ending of 2005, beginning of 2006. So we get over there, we buy a house, everything is great, but my parents have all this money saved up. They're thinking of investing in a business. Trying to get the right idea on what to do, what not to do. Long story short, they never really got to that part of, starting a business. They were using the funds that they had from the sale of the house to get by, pay for the mortgage of the new house that we bought over there, and live. And wherever you pull money out of that you don't put back, it's going to run out. It's going to run out.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any more. And that's kind of what happened to him. And then my mom had to run, go get a job. My mom was in sales too. She sold cemetery properties and funeral services here in Miami. And over there, she ran against the same barrier as my dad.
She was in the real estate, or was she selling the individual plots?
The individual plots, yeah.
Okay,
just the cemetery properties, like the individual plots for you to buy and bury your loved ones, and the funeral services. Okay. So she pretty much worked for the company that did that, and she was a sales associate for that company.
Okay.
They make a salary and then they get commission off bonuses off of what they sell.
Yeah.
So she also ran into the same barrier as my dad because now you're leaving Miami where predominantly everybody speaks Spanish and you can get around and navigate yourself perfectly fine. And now you move to Southwest Florida, Lee County, Cape Coral, where everybody speaks English. And there's, if you're lucky, one person that speaks Spanish. So they didn't have, they didn't have the ease to be able to say, oh, let's just keep doing what we were doing back home over here, because the language barrier was a big thing. So they struggled with that. My mom ended up going and working for a hotel. My dad ended up becoming a plumber's apprentice and learning plumbing. He became a great plumber, might I add, which all of that was not in the works, but we had to get by. And my parents were hustlers, and they said, hey, we're not going to sink, we're going to swim and figure it out. So that was going great, right when they started kind of leveling it off. And I'll be honest, even I started liking Cape and saying, oh, okay, when I got there, the same thing, the buzz, the new kid, I ran into a couple of kids that I had seen from Miami, because so many people were moving over there from Miami. I was able to connect with a few people that I never really was friends with, but you know how high school is. You see faces and you know faces and you're good with these faces. Maybe you don't talk to these faces all the time, but you recognize them, know they're there.
Yeah.
And maybe you bump into each other once, oh, hey, what's up, or, just a nod, but, you've never really had a conversation. A lot of those people that were that for me here in Miami, I ran into in Cape Coral. I was like, oh, shit, hey, weren't you? Yeah, weren't you? Yeah. And then, we created new friendships, because I was like, all right, dude, well, at least we got something in common, know? So that we went down that road, and, I made some good friends, doing so. And that, I started liking it and feeling it out. And it was great, and the buzz and the girls. And for the first time ever, I was, I had a girlfriend that was not Cuban American. I had a white girlfriend, like a real white girl, and it was different. It was a different taste of life.
Sure.
So I really started enjoying it, bro, and loving it. And Cape was a town where, off-roading, four-wheelers and all of that was a big thing. And I remember getting my first four-wheeler, going out to ride. Dude, I really started jamming it up in that place and enjoying it. And I want to say 3 years into it, 3.5 years into it, the real estate crash starts barreling down on all of us. And jobs start going left and right. Dump truck drivers, which were everywhere in the city of Cape, and at one point just started disappearing off the streets. People selling, they're trying to sell their houses. Prices going down. Everything just tanks. My dad loses his job. My mom was hanging on by a thread in the hotel that she was working at. Things weren't working out, and my mom was like, listen, we're backed up on the mortgage. This is not working out. We're gonna have to go back to Miami. They picked everything up again. At that point, we lost a house that they had bought over there, because they foreclosed on it. Once you don't make your payments, and we were one of those few people, because back then there were stories of people that lived in the houses without making payments for years, and they didn't get foreclosed on. But not us. Our thing was quick and swift, and we moved back to Miami. And it was a struggle then. My parents, luckily my dad's best friend gave him an apartment. His dad owned an apartment building that had about 50, 60 units in it. It was right there on Southwest 107th and Southwest 8th. And he's like, hey, listen, I had a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, open up, take it, don't pay me anything. Just turn on the lights and water's included. Just figure it out.
What an opportunity.
What an opportunity. Thankful for that, super thankful for that, because thankfully, because he did that, we were able to come back home, to what was really home. And by that time I was ready to come back, because, I was growing up. A lot of the things that I never saw here in Miami growing up, I saw over there, like, kids doing bad things, some drugs and stuff like that. Like growing up in Miami, you'd think in a big city, you'd get more exposed to these bad things. Not really, man. Some of these small towns, they really don't have anything to do.
People get bored.
So they get bored, and the kids start experimenting. It's normal. I remember the first time I ever saw pot. I was out in the trails riding my four-wheeler, and I had some guy pull up. He's like, hey, what's up, man? You guys are cool. We had been riding together for a couple of minutes, and he pulls out a bowl and some buddies start smoking right there, and I'm like, what is that? He's like, oh, some weed, bro. You want to hit it? I was like, holy shit, no, I never seen that before, but that's cool. And I was like, actually, you know what? Let me see. Just because I was so intrigued, and I'd never seen, anything. So crazy, man. So whatever, that ended, we came back to Miami, and it was just, start grinding again and starting all over again, and figuring it out. By then, Brinks was out of the question for my dad, because he had left. They usually, don't take you back after you leave and stuff like that. So he had to reinvent himself, and then my mom did go back to the cemetery and started selling again and doing that. And, little by little started kind of picking up until we were able to go rent a property and live somewhat of a normal life.
Sure.
But my parents weren't homeowners anymore.
Sure.
Not until 2020, when I was ready to buy my house.
Fairly recently.
That I said, hey, listen, I'm not gonna buy my house unless you guys, unless I know you have your place, and you got it figured out. Growing up, my old man was one of my best friends, and that didn't happen early on. When you're a kid, you have that respect for your parents, and you're like, oh, that's my dad, they're gonna reprimand me. But sure enough, growing into my teenage years and moving further on, I started getting closer to my dad, and we had more things in common, and we became best friends. And in 2012, my dad, mind you, this was all through that turmoil of coming back from losing their property. My dad was working for minimum wage at this point. We weren't anywhere near the heights that my parents had hustled and had achieved in the past at that point. And comes in 2012, and my dad's mom starts getting really sick in Cuba. And he had already lost his dad a couple years back and wasn't even able to be there for him. So that had hit him really hard. And he's like, damn, I'm gonna lose my mom again. And I'm gonna lose my other parent now, and I'm not gonna be able to say goodbye. So he started back then, and still I think now, a lot of these agencies that send packages and sell flights to go to Cuba were doing mules. What's a mule? Somebody that they're gonna pay their flight ticket for them to jump on a plane and take a bag that's not theirs, that the agency filled up from all these people that wanna send things to their family members. They're gonna take this bag. When they land in the airport, they're gonna pull it out of the airport and give it to somebody that is gonna distribute it, because that's it, their job is done. So in an essence, they're paying your flight for you to be there for a week or a couple days, see your family, and they're paying your flight back just for you to take that bag for them.
Okay, so bags, okay.
So you're a mule.
Is it like weed and stuff?
No, it was
just like random things.
Dude, they send everything to Cuba. I mean, we're talking rice, deodorants, shaving, the toiletries, like,
Just
toothpaste, necessities,
Yeah.
really. My dad started doing those trips, and he was going back and forth, every 2 months.
That reminds me of when I was in the military, bro.
Yeah.
So I was just in training for like 5.5 months, but I would always call Anna, my girlfriend, and be like, hey, send me toilet paper, send me deodorant,
man.
I need razors, I need this, because like, dude, we didn't get to go to the PX whenever we needed to. Like, it was like every 2 to 3 or 4 weeks, whatever the case was. Whenever the drill sergeants wanted to take us,
that's when you could do it.
Yeah, so that's funny that you say that.
Yeah, man. So that was, what he was doing. And it was working out at first, because he was, going over there, hanging out with my grandma, spending some time with her. She was getting sicker and sicker. And he's like, hey, at least, I don't know when it's going to be, but at least I'll have some peace in knowing that when it happens, I've been there. So he probably went about 7 or 8 times, I want to say. And on the last time, I remember vividly taking him to the airport, driving him to the airport, and dropping him off. Mind you, my dad is my best friend. We're like nail and finger. And I take him to the airport, drop him off. He jumps on a flight. Don't worry, he didn't die. This is not where this is going. Okay. But he jumps on the flight, goes over there. When he gets over there, he's pulling out with the bag. The cops grab him and tell him, hey, come over here. We're gonna search your bag. This has never been done before. They had never bothered him. They have never, stopped him. He would just grab his bag, take it outside, give it to the guy, and he was gone. He'd always have a friend or somebody waiting for him.
He had done this multiple times?
This was like the 7th or the 8th time. So it was all routine business.
Yeah.
Takes a bag, walking out of the airport, and they're like, hey, some cops are like, hey, come over here. Okay. Well, put him to the side. Long story short, they opened up the bag. They checked through the bag. Inside the bag, they had put, so the big Idaho potatoes?
Yes.
The big box that you buy at like Costco or BJ's?
It's like a bag of them?
Yeah, it's like a bag, but it's inside of a box, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's like a little box, and inside is that bag with the, instant mashed potatoes. So they had gotten one of those, the big freaking bags. They had cut it open, opened up the box, cut open the bag, took out all the mashed potatoes, and they had put inside the bag this, remember back then, this thing called K2 and spice, which was like not really weed, but it was like kind of like a pot. But it was made and sold.
Laced,
it was
bro.
legal.
Listen to this.
So, yes, a lot of people had issues.
So my buddy, all right, this is crazy, and this really turned me off to weed when I was in high school. But there was a gentleman at our high school who smoked K2, and it was laced. Became a vegetable, bro. He was like either junior or senior year, and he basically had the mindset of, I don't know, like a 7-year-old. And this guy's like 17 years old, super smart guy. And I remember they pulled us all into the auditorium, and I don't think anybody knew what was really going on. But his dad came to speak on it. And it was like, hey, like, listen, these drugs out here, you never know if it's safe, all this, all that.
Christ.
And ever since that point, I was really like turned off, because I didn't want to waste my life,
of course,
on doing stuff like that if it meant that I could possibly end up in a vegetative state for a long period of time. So that was a very eye-opening experience, and as unfortunate as it is that happened to him, I appreciate his dad coming to talk, because I know for a fact it changed a lot of people's perspective on
and direction in life.
Just
you never
weed.
know.
Like, you think it's just weed?
No,
it's
not
all the time.
It's not just weed. You know, it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
You know, and they say, like, I've heard it all the time, oh, weed's a gateway drug. No, you know, not really. You know, what I think what made it more of a gateway drug is that it was so, you know, frowned upon and so this, and now look at it today. But back then, being so about it, people were like, oh, you know, I did that, and it's supposed to be this horrible thing, and it's not that bad. Maybe cocaine and crack and all these other things are not that bad either. That's where the problem comes in. They are, dude. They are. You know, so that happens. They stop them, and they had gotten that bag of Idaho potatoes and filled it with that K2. This was completely legal. It was being sold in gas stations across the country. You can order it online. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. They stopped them, and they told them, hey, you're getting arrested for trafficking. It's like, trafficking what? Guys, the guy that stopped me was like, dude, you see me here. I came in the last, 5-6 months, almost twice a month. You know, what are you talking about? It's like, no, we're gonna take it. Long story short, they arrest him. They take the substances, and they have Interpol run a test on the substance. Interpol comes back and tells them, hey, listen, this is not anything illegal. This is sold across the world, and it's not legal. It's not. They thought it was marijuana, and they're like, listen, it's not a narcotic. You guys, here's our test results. They're like, oh, okay. All right. Nevertheless, he was still trafficking. He's going to get 15 years.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh is right. And since then, my dad has been there in Cuba, arrested for the better part of...
He's there right now?
He's there right now. There right now. Yeah, he's still there. That was in August of 2012, August of this year. Funny enough, it's here August right now. I think it was like the 12th or the 11th of August in 2012. So it's been a good 12 years already since he went on that flight over there that I dropped him off and never came back. So he's still not back. I actually talked to him earlier last week, and we have connections.
I had no idea it was turning this way. I had no idea.
That's why I was like, wait, dude, he didn't die, but it's still good. It's still good. Yeah, man, and it hit me hard, dude, because I was super tight with my old man, super tight. So when that hits, it's like, fuck, how do you deal with that? And there's nothing you can do about it. And then there's no extradition in Cuba, so the American embassy there couldn't do anything for him. Yeah, he's an American citizen. Yeah, he's lived here most of his life, paid taxes. He's been a law-abiding citizen. This guy
he was free, and now he's not.
No, he's not. This guy has had a license. He was a security guard at the time. He had a license to carry a firearm. Like, this is not some Joe Schmo. This is not your prototype of a drug trafficker, of a drug dealer. But those were the cards he got dealt, and that was that. And still to this day, he's still there.
So he's got 3 years left?
He's got 3 years left, but over there it's kind of like here. They give you 10 months as a year, so he's gotten some time reductions. Long story short, we're hoping that maybe by the end of this year, they'll let him go. And the American embassy told him, dude, we don't got no problems with you. We love you, we like you. As soon as they let you go, because we can't interfere, we're going to put you on a plane and send your ass back home.
Damn.
But
so he's coming out soon regardless.
Soon, regardless of the fact, he's coming out soon. So whether they want to push it into the end of the year or when they give him those credited time serves now, they tell him, hey, you can go earlier before the end of the year. That's great. But I really don't foresee it being much longer than, the end of this year, beginning of next year, God willing. But yeah, that was that. So reason I came into the story was back into 2020 when I was like, hey, listen, my mom was alone with my sister and my grandmother living at the time. And I was like, listen, I can't let you guys, hang out there to dry. So I'm ready to buy a house And I know my mom had the means to do it because she had been working her since we got back from Cape and hustling and doing great in her job. And she had a 401k, she had her savings, she had all that stuff. She wasn't the most responsible with her credit and finances, but thankfully enough, I kind of learned already a little bit and knew the ins and the outs of what to do and what not to do. And I was like, listen, forget it. I'm going to figure it out. So I ran her credit to get her approved. She had some collections. She had some this and that. I was like, listen, I'm going to figure it all out. Started calling the people, negotiating with them to get lower payoffs. I managed to figure out those 4 collections that she had, got them paid off. I did a rapid rescore on her, got her credit to where it needed to be, got her approved. FHA for $375,000, and I was like, all right, now let's go find you a house. And I must have shown this lady, bro, 45, 50 houses, man. Don't ever work for your mom. It's the worst. My kids were like, my daughter, my son wasn't born yet. My daughter was like, Papa, how many more? It was crazy, Me, my wife would go out and then just show her a bunch of places, and she wanted this, she wanted that, but luckily enough, she kind of let me take the reins here and there. And finally, we found this great house that worked perfect for her. The house already had impact doors. It had a nice tile roof. It was in Miami Gardens and a nice secluded neighborhood. 2020.
What neighborhood?
So it's kind of like the heart of Miami Gardens. So it's right on 27th, like right off of 27th Avenue, where City Hall is in Miami Gardens. So you got 27th,
Don't tell us too much. Don't tell us too much, but
183rd, we got 183rd, and then you got 199 where the stadium is.
Okay.
Right behind there, there's like a little squared neighborhood that it doesn't connect to the other side.
Okay.
And it's right behind City Hall, right next to the stadium. That big neighborhood there is very secluded, very nice, and I managed to find our house right in that neighborhood.
So was 2020 right before prices took off?
Right before prices took off, she bought the house for $330. And
what's it worth today?
Dude, I want to say at least 590, 600.
Exactly.
Easily.
So you did it right at the right time.
Right at the right time.
That's amazing.
So I got her in that house.
Because she would not have been able to buy.
Absolutely
That's
not.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. She was, kind of bitching at me at the time because she was paying $1,600 or $1,500. $1,500 I think she was paying at the rental that she was at. And she hated it. It was small. Her and my grandmother were sharing a room. My sister had her room, but it was all tight. It wasn't comfortable. And I was like, listen, you're bitching and moaning about these $1,500 you're paying here. You're gonna pay more in a house, but I promise you that if you stay here for another 3 years, you're gonna be paying $2,500 here. Today, that rental that she's at pays more than that right now.
That's crazy.
Paying like $2,700.
Yeah, that's crazy, bro.
So, and I always
Y'all
circle
did it at
back
the
to
right
that.
time.
Yeah, I always circle back to that. In that moment in my life, dude.
She should have known too, though, right? Because they already did buy and sell a house, and they made a lot on their first Miami property.
Exactly.
So she probably had a decent understanding to where she had been through that, right?
Yes, but then again, the fear of everything that she went through, when
Bro, she's alone.
Exactly. So
Like, I
she's
can't
like
imagine.
stutter stepping.
She hasn't been with her husband for 12 years.
And interesting enough, when that happened to my dad, my parents were like on a break. They had kind of split up. But even when, they get upset at each other and split up and go on this break, they were still super tight, and my parents were there for each other. It's not like my mom went off and got a boyfriend and my dad went off and got a girlfriend. No, they were just about their freaking kids and, figuring it out. And we don't like each other too much right now, but, we got a lot of things in common we still got to figure out type of thing. So, she's alone, yeah, but I'm like, Mom, things are only gonna get harder. Let's get you this property sooner than later, because then you're gonna be, whatever you're gonna pay for this house today, you're gonna end up paying in rent sooner or later. Believe me, 100%. I had never been sure of anything more than that in my life and that moment. 2020, I had a crystal ball, dude. And you can ask anybody that knows me back then, all the things that I was saying, it sounded like I was crazy. It sounded like literally I had a crystal ball and I could see the future. And I'm like, guys, whatever you buy today is gonna more than double in price. Buy it now, and these interest, I remember saying that and people were like, bro, this guy's, what a salesman.
Yeah. Dude, realtors get such bad raps, bro.
Really, bro? It's ridiculous, bro. Really, really bad.
I think it's because there's so much of us and everyone's cold calling, trying to get people to sell their property and all this and all that. But Yeah, we get such a bad rap. When I cold call, I don't even say I'm a realtor.
Really, yeah. You want to stay away from that. It's like,
I'm
hey,
like,
I'm just
are you a
interested.
realtor? No.
No.
I'm
no.
a neighbor.
I had some guy not too long ago tell me, hey, are you an agent? And I was like, an agent? What do you mean, like 007? Because, man, that's pretty cool. I'm not, though, but I would like to be. Yeah. And the guy just starts cracking up. Well, I got the listing appointment, and I listed the house and sold it.
There you go.
So that worked out. I was like, hey, so the agent joke got you, huh? But yeah, man, we get a horrible rap. And back then, I had so much clarity in that point because I knew what was going to happen, man, and I saw it coming. So I told my mom, listen, let's get you your place. So I got her that place in that little neighborhood that I was telling you about. She bought the house, closed on it. The house needed, the floors needed to be done. The kitchen was outdated a little bit. Well, not necessarily outdated, but it wasn't of the best quality. So I went in there and I was like, listen, obviously I made some money when she bought the house because I was the realtor. And I grabbed all of my commissions and even a little bit more because it went over budget some, but I did the floors in the house brand new. I did the baseboards, the casing on the doors on the inside. She already had hurricane impact windows and doors throughout, so I didn't have to worry about that.
That's huge.
But I did the kitchen for her and the flooring throughout and kind of like the meat and potatoes to like have it all look brand new and nice. Painted the whole house on the inside. I knocked down some walls, kind of opened up some spaces for her, made it nicer. Remodeled her house. I was probably 2 weeks out from finishing her house, and I was in the trenches looking for my place because I was like, all right, that's it. I got my mom's house. I'm going there every day to work on it, fix it up for her, make it nice. But at the same time, like the clock is ticking. Like I need to find my house too. So I'm looking. I went under contract in a property in Miami Gardens as well, a little bit further down the ways, not in such a nicer part like her house was, but it was a corner lot, which I really wanted. And I said, you know what, let me figure it out. I'm like a month and a half, 2 months under contract with this seller. It was an investor. The guy ends up being a foreign investor. He had the FRIPTA, so he couldn't sell the house. The house he was selling for $320.
He got taxed
like
crazy.
He was gonna get taxed like
it's like
super
20 or
hard.
40%. I can't
Correct.
remember what
After
it was.
$200K, he was gonna get hit, man. Like I'm sorry, after $300K, I think it was $299 or something like that, he was gonna get hit super hard. So he was telling me, no, give me this money on the side or I'll lower the price. Like it was all so much back and forth and turmoil that I was like, oh my God, this is, nothing was working out my way. I couldn't find another place that I liked. And then I'm sitting there one day at my mom's house, working on it. And my wife called me and says, hey, did you see this thing that just popped up to the market? I was like, no, what are you talking about? She's like, listen, it has no pictures, but it's in your mom's neighborhood and it's a corner house. I was like, oh crap, seriously, let me see it. Sends me the address. I put up the satellite image. I see a corner house. I go to Google Earth View. I see the front of it, corner house, 2-car garage, had a pool, had a huge lot. I go on property info, had almost a 10,000 square foot lot. I'm like, oh my God, where's this house been all my life? I love it. You know, it sounds great. I told her, hey, listen, call the agent and tell him you're my assistant and set up an appointment. She did so. The lady was like, listen, I can show it to you guys the day after tomorrow. I haven't taken any pictures of the listing yet. I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. So that's why I don't tell you to check it out tomorrow. So the day after tomorrow, once the pictures are taken, come on over. I was at my mom's house. My wife pulls up, picks me up, literally 10 blocks up, 2 blocks over. There was a house. We pulled up. As soon as I pulled up to the front of the house, I'm like, yo, this is it. This is it. The price is right. We were approved at the time for $450, but dude, it was my first house, and I knew Miami Gardens very well because I drive for dollars in there, and I knew like the nicer spots and the nicer areas, and I knew that there was a change coming and such a possibility for such a growth of equity and being able to buy at such a bottom price that I knew nowhere else in Miami-Dade had those affordable prices. I mean, unless I went to Liberty City, which I wasn't going to, but I was like, this is it. I pulled up. It was. I mean, all the right signs right away. We opened up went into the house, opened it up, checked it out. I mean, it was ideal. It needed to be completely renovated, because I didn't want to live in there the way it looked, but the bones of the house, the actual house itself.
The cosmetics are easy to change.
The cosmetics are easy, so it was ideal. And bro, I took it and I ran with it. And I remember telling the agent in there, because she was there present to do the showing. I told her, hey, I didn't even make it very far past the front door. And I told her, hey, listen, I'm the realtor that requested the showing for this house. And granted, this was also a very different market. And I'm going to buy this house, and I'm going to tell you why this is going to be my house and why you're going to accept the contract I'm going to send you as soon as I walk out this door. because the contract was ready. All I had to send.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, really? Why? And I was like, all right, well, you know what city we're located in, right? Miami Gardens. Miami Gardens has a certificate of reoccupancy that you're going to have to do. First thing I did when I walked into the door and I looked into the garage, because that was like one of my big points. I wanted the garage for my jet ski, for my car, you know, that was really big for me. Look in the garage, efficiency. I was like, ha, bingo. So listen, the reason you're going to accept my contract and take me to buy this house and not show it to anybody else is because you have to do a certificate of reoccupancy for that illegal efficiency that they have in there, because I know that's not legal. I know it. I'll bet whatever you want on it. She's like, no, yeah, I don't think it is. She's like, all right, well, the city of Miami Gardens is going to have to come in here and inspect this property. And once they see that, that's going to cost them about $10,000 to $12,000 to repair and fix and get back to being an actual garage for them to be able to sell a house. The husband and wife were getting a divorce. The wife wasn't even living at the house anymore. The husband had his girlfriend living with him at the house. Like, it was a shit show. These people needed to get rid of the house and move on. And I told her that, and I'll never forget. I sent her the offer as soon as I walked out, and maybe 3-4 hours later, I get a call from her broker. Hey, Rolando, how are you? How are you doing? You sent an offer. I was like, yeah. He's like, hey, yeah, you're totally right about the reoccupancy with Miami Gardens. And I was like, listen, I'm going to handle all of that. The seller doesn't have to do anything. They won't even have to remove the efficiency, because I got, you know, low friends in high places, and we'll take care of it. Yeah. And he was like, okay, fantastic, great. Went under contract, dude. Took care of the reoccupancy. Everything stayed as is. They didn't have to do anything in that fact. And
so you said Miami Gardens has a reoccupancy situation. Is that for every house that is bought and sold? Do they flag it on the appraisal?
Yes.
Could you dive into that?
Reoccupancies for Miami Gardens, or any property that's going to switch ownerships, has to get the reoccupancy. It's pretty much a way of the city making sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. And there hasn't been any additions to the property, any illegal uses of the property. For example, maybe you added, which was legal, a den, but you turned that den into a master bedroom with a bathroom, and now it has all this electrical and plumbing that it wasn't supposed to have. You're not going to pass your reoccupancy. So that's really what they do it for. And it's not just Miami Gardens. Miami Gardens does it. City of Hialeah does it. North Miami Beach does it as well. So it's a couple of places in there that do it, and it's a little bit of a headache when you run into it, because
is it separate from an appraisal?
Yeah, it's totally separate.
So
it has nothing to do with the appraisal.
That comes in.
Us as agents, we have to instruct and educate the seller, because it's their job to go and order this, or ours to do it for them, and get this ordered for them, so that the city inspector can come out, take his pictures, do his thing, and write it up and say, hey, you're clear, good to go. You cannot transfer title without that reoccupancy in the prospective cities that they're...
That's super interesting, because I know like Coral Gables doesn't do that, for example.
No, most
Coconut
places
Grove,
don't.
Brickell.
No, most places don't. This is just, I guess, in areas where it's more problematic and it's seen, like
where they
Hialeah,
adding on additions,
exactly,
like turning a 3-bedroom to like a 7-bedroom.
That's,
Okay.
Hialeah is like living, breathing example of that, dude. You know, there's, you know, and it's crazy because they start adding onto these houses and they think, oh yeah, nobody can tell. And dude, come on, when you have, you know, your trash can every day, every trash day is like open up, and you're like sourcing another trash can, and then you're pulling up to these houses that are supposed to have one trash can, but they have 3 trash cans outside. Like, come on, bro.
There's signs.
You know, there's signs, there's tells. So that reoccupancy is done for that reason. And I managed to, you know, navigate through that easily and swiftly, and not bother them and having to do any changes.
So you took the changes in your own hands. Did you just have hire some people come in, destroy everything?
Correct. And not
it?
even, I did all of that after closing. I didn't even have to do it because of the, you know, contact that I had. I was able to you know, have them give me a clear reoccupancy, and I could have kept the efficiency if I wanted to, but it's just not what this wasn't the plans that I had. At first, I'm not gonna lie, I was scared shitless buying my first house and, you know, going into uncharted waters, and I left the efficiency there. I was gonna rent it out, and probably like 3 months after living in the house, I was sitting one day in my living room and I'm like, man, it'd be really nice to put my car inside that garage. And then I did the numbers. At that time, I could have probably rented it out for like $1,000 or $1,100. I did the math. I was like, $30, $35 a day, man. I can't pay myself $30, $35 a day to have peace of mind and keep my car in the garage and, you know, my jet ski, or, you know, my things, my tools. I went outside. I went around the house. I went inside the efficiency, and I went straight to the wall that was covering the garage door. Boom, boom, with a hammer, and I just knocked it down. I was like, all right, that's it. There's no going back, you know, and rearranged everything and turned it back into a garage. Nice. But that was that, dude. And
so if you know somebody at the city's office or whatever, you can kind of slide by a.
You can kind of wiggle
Yeah.
around and find your ways. It's not common. Actually, the person that I had in Miami Gardens at the time that helped me with that is no longer working there.
Sure.
So, you know, listen, when rules were invented, the ways around them were already known before they got invented.
Sure.
All right?
Sure.
You know, if we're going to be honest. And you just have to know what you're doing. I mean, you know, there's black and there's white, but there's always a little gray. And I don't care who you are, but everybody at one point navigates in the gray. You just got to know how to do it and not go too far, you know, in the other. Some people don't do it properly, and you know, I think that's probably why that person that I used to work with is not there anymore. But you know, everybody does it. You know, it's not a secret. You know, I'm sure it is. But when you go and you're doing this like due process, and it's just, you know, like Cubans say, a decaro. You know, you're pretty much doing it there in the middle of the daylight, and you know, letting everybody see and you know, doing whatever you want. Like you run the show, then yeah, you're gonna run into some problems and hiccups.
Yeah. I think living in the gray is something very interesting because there's so many facets of life that deal in that, and it's based on a human opinion and a human interpretation, right? Like you go to an attorney and you say, hey, write me a trust or an estate plan. Each attorney is going to give you a different thing, right? So that gray is supposed to be there. It's meant to be there. And I think a lot of people look at that gray as like, okay, I'm going to follow everything to the T, and they miss out on a lot of opportunity because they're like, this, and they won't like break away and think for themselves or break away and try something new or figure out how to navigate that. So I like that you said that.
There's so much opportunity, and it's not necessarily meaning that you have to put your hands in fire. You know, it's just knowing the right time to do the right thing.
Yep.
That's key.
100%.
That's key. And you know, not being a damn robot. If you're a robot and you behave like a robot and you're like,
you ever gonna get ahead? Probably not.
Probably not, dude. I mean, just go talk to, you know, if you want to be, I don't know, a police officer. Go talk to a police officer, you know, that's been a police officer for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Ask him what he's done. Ask him what he's getting paid. You know, what his life is going like. And that's exactly where you're going to be at,
100%.
taking that route. You know,
100%.
it's not rocket science. Find somebody that does what you're thinking about doing them and question them about it.
Yeah.
And odds are that's where you're going to be if you follow that same path. 100%. Could you probably set yourself apart a little bit and do some things differently? Yes. But in a nutshell, that's where you're headed.
Sure.
You know, very few people nowadays are going to reinvent the wheel. If they're even going to be able to, you know, so it's really, it boils down to that, you know, wherever you see those people, it's where you're going to be headed.
100%. All right, so you got your house, you took down the efficiency, you got your car and your jet skis in there. You have a wife and 2 kids?
Wife and 2 kids, yes.
How long you been married?
Been married, well, we haven't been married that long. We got married officially in 2019, but we've been together 12 years now.
That's
but
amazing.
Before that, you know, going back into high school, we were actually dated for probably like a month or 2 in high school, but she went to a different school than I did. I met her because of my best friend. And, you know, my best friend was her best friend too. And she kind of just, you know, linked us up. And we dated for a little bit. It was nice. It was great. She was awesome, but it wasn't, you know, the right time. Mm-hmm. And I even remember talking to my mom about it. And I was like, man, there's this girl. I like her. I don't want to be a dick about it, but I don't think we're going to work out now. She's in another school. I mean, come on. How hard is it when, you know, you're going to school, you got all these girls like, hey, you know,
yeah.
How hard is it for you to stay faithful and true to yourself when your girlfriend's in God knows where, and vice versa. You know, how do you know who's she talking? So it was too much there. Yeah, too much complicated stuff. And I was like, you know what? Let's not do this now. Let's, you know, be friends, and that's that. And a couple years after that, you know, when I was already out of high school, we reconnected again and, you know, got together. I mean, I remember the first day I saw her, you know, we kissed right then and there. Like, I gave her a kiss and she was like, whoa, where'd that come from? And that's it. The rest was history, bro. We're married, awesome. 2 kids, a house, a dog. I mean, we're in there knee deep, I'd say.
That's awesome, man.
So yeah, man.
I think that that's not so common in Miami anymore.
No.
Considering, so I feel like a lot of people aren't getting married till they're super old, or they're not having kids because it's expensive.
Yeah, man. A lot of my friends, I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of my friends are still single. Some are living with their parents, and you know, I'm glad we're touching this point because it boils back into the market. Even if that sounds crazy enough, like how can you tie this into the market? Well, a lot of my friends, dude, they're still at home. They're, you know, with their parents. They don't, you know, have a significant other. They're not married. You know, they're living their life, and you know, we're not getting any younger.
Bro?
It's like, yeah, dude, what are you living for? Like, if you're not out there hustling, and you know, you got your girl, you know, and you went and got your little house, and you know, you're living your day to day, and like, you know, you're saving money to, I don't know, pour a new driveway in your house or do a new gazebo. Like, those are, you know, small goals, but you know, if you're not working for that, you know, what are you even doing?
Yeah.
What are you here for?
Man.
You need something to give you that push, you know, that want, that need, and it's just not there. And like I said, a lot of those people, you know, my age, millennials, don't own a property, aren't you know, serious with anybody, you know, in a relationship just yet. And then it goes to think, and with the market, like I was saying, because so many people are like, oh no, the market is terrible, and it happens every year when it's election year. All of this uncertainty and turmoil and this and that, and I get it, but unless there's something, and this is my opinion, unless there's like, you know, World War III really starts or a nuke gets launched, I don't really see the demise and the downfall of the market when you have so many millennials homeless because they live with their parents, or the few that are rented. These guys are, sooner or later, they're gonna need a house, you know? They're gonna wanna move out. Maybe some are, you know, I got friends that are now, you know, already thinking about having kids, and they're into their 30s, and you know, do you think they're gonna live in the same 1-bedroom apartment they're living in now when they have that kid? Absolutely not. They're gonna grow out of that. So having all that demand still, that might not be here right now, but that is coming sooner than we all think, how is the market gonna tank? You know, and that's not just here in Miami, that's nationwide. Because it's said that most millennials in 2020, 21, 22, when they were buying houses, was because their parents were pulling out second mortgages on their houses or HELOCs and giving them the money. Because
nobody's buying in Miami without their family's help.
Nobody's doing
Bro,
that.
especially in the markets that I work in. So I work Gables, Grove, Brickell, downtown. Every single person needs family help because they're not making enough money. And
dude, it's
so
impossible. It's impossible. I mean, my next door neighbor just bought maybe couple months ago, bought the house, and he qualified with 3 people to buy the house, and in that house he lives there with his girlfriend, his mother, his mother's husband or his dad. I don't really know if it's his dad or his mother's husband, his grandmother and his grandfather. 6 people live in a house.
It's crazy.
So I get it, man. I get it, because had I not had the opportunity that I had, you know, to help all these wonderful, amazing clients, you know, with all their real estate goals and dreams, and save for me to be able to buy my house, I'd probably be in the same, you know, boat right now. Yeah, 100%. I'd be on the same boat right now with my mom, telling her, hey, Mom, listen, you didn't buy nothing. You're tired of paying rent. You know, let's buy something together and let's all go live there.
Yep.
Which, not having a house and seeing that, it sounds great because I'll be able to have a house. But knowing what I know now and living what I live now, that I have my own house, I have my own peace and quiet.
Peace of mind, dude. Dude, there's so many people that are never going to be able to experience that.
It's incredible.
Like somebody they've been with, kids, a house, sense of like, I don't know, just camaraderie with the loved ones that
with
you're
your
close
loved
with.
ones,
like,
man, yeah.
Dude, so many people are never going to be able to own a property.
And it's sad, bro. It's sad because you think about it and it's like, why, you know, not try when there's a possibility? But some people, you know, there really isn't even that possibility. And then I have some friends and some people that I know that are able to do it, and they're scared.
Yeah.
They're scared of the commitment. And it's like, dude, don't take my word for it. I'm a dumbass. You know, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
In general perspectives, you know, speaking. But look at the greats and the people that really know about this. Real estate is the #1 vehicle in this country to achieve wealth.
90% of millionaires come from real estate.
Where do you think these guys are coming from?
Yeah.
So I tell my friends, like I got friends that, you know, are able to buy a house now, have the income, have the money saved, and they got cold feet. I'm like, dude, buy something. Even if you buy a house in the shittiest neighborhood and you cut it up into 4 units and you put a shed in the backyard to rent it out to, and you have 5 units in there, okay? Kind of like Chris was mentioning to you guys the other day.
Do you know Antonio Aguiar? Chris's good friend. I did some of his loans, but Antonio, man, just chops up and like puts the efficiencies back there, bro. He's killing.
Yeah, dude. So that's the name of the game. And I tell them, guys, take advantage and do that. You know, while you can, because if you got this money, and fine, stay living in your mom's house, but at least go out, buy an investment property. Get something and build that equity, because I promise you're not gonna get that $100,000, $200,000 for doing nothing in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Other than investing it into a piece of property.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know why. Maybe it was easier for me to see it because I'm in the business and I understand it. But I don't know. I feel like
some people just don't care.
Don't care.
Like,
yeah. Don't see it. I mean, I don't get it.
They want to make their life difficult. Like some people just really, I feel like, are stuck in that mindset. They don't they like the struggle, or they're attached to the struggle somehow, and they just can't figure out how to get out of that rut. Because there's so many opportunities and solutions within just the real estate space alone to exit that struggle and free yourself, essentially. They just won't take it.
And
you can talk to them as much as you want. Hey, do this, do that, do that.
And it's crazy, dude. It's crazy.
I'd rather just stay here and struggle my whole life.
And then I see other people. Be
sad and mad and watch you be successful.
Yeah, it's like, come on, dude. And then I see other people that I have helped, you know, that, dude, like, right out of high school, you know, became professionals, worked in their job for 3-4 years, saved a little bit of money, and when they had, you know, a couple pennies saved up, they turn around and come to me right away and say, hey, how can I buy a house? And they did it, and today they're sitting on a pile of equity.
Super wealthy.
And now they're sitting on a pile of equity that you know, that I told them they were going to be sitting on, and they're all like, boy, Broly, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Boy, did you know, had the right idea, man. You really had it figured out at that time. And you know, I wish I had that same clarity I do right now, back then, you know, that I did back then right now. But, you know, I tell people today, I'm like, guys, listen, you know, I think there's still going to be so much supply. And I think, you know, we're like in a pendulum right now with everything that happened with our lawsuit, everything that, you know, the elections, everything that's happening. You know, everybody always gets, you know, it's common, you know, there's uncertainty, stock market goes down. Stock market doesn't like the uncertainty. So what is it going to do? It's going to go down. And dude, this is something that we live every 4 years. It's not new, you guys. So putting that aside, not saying that it's not of importance and it is not one of the most relevant issues today, but putting that to the side just for a second. Look at everything else we've talked about. The millennials not having houses, the boomers still controlling a lot of real estate that, let's be honest, they don't need this anymore. They're getting ready to croak and die. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. You know, eventually we gotta own these properties, not the boomers.
I think it's interesting too to look at like Blackstone, BlackRock eating up a lot of the inventory. I think it was.
Yeah, those guys.
I'm gonna cut out the stat because I don't know, but like 50% or something.
They're fucking
home
tycoons,
transactions
bro.
in Florida were purchased by those guys.
That's what they want to do.
It makes sense. Like, it makes total sense for them to own everything and not let anybody else build, or few people. And I think that that's the direction that it's going to be heading, which is, dude, it's wild. But
I mean, and all these companies, dude, that own multiple single-family homes that are rented out, and that's their business. They're not going to sell these homes.
It's a management nightmare, but their thesis big scheme is like literally own everything and push it down to where the people coming in and the people that are already here, they just can't get access to it, because if they control all the equity, it's over. It's over. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting space to think about. But Mars candy bars.
Oh yeah,
or Mars. The candy company, whatever. They just acquired like Pringles, Cheez-Its, I forget what that company is called, for $36 billion.
That's crazy.
Bro, that's another crazy conglomerate that's,
And that's
going
like
on
all
in like the food
carcinogen
industry
full
too.
food,
Yeah,
foods,
bro,
and they're making all these money.
Crazy. So just the big corporations like us competing with that it's so wild to think about. It's so wild to think about. But yeah, man, it's so what markets do you typically work in?
So, dude, I like to tell everybody, I'm a Florida realtor.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work anywhere, but you know, where the most of my work happens, you know, because I say I work anywhere because I've sold in South Miami, Homestead. I've sold in Palm Coast, Florida. I've sold in, you know, St. Lucie. I've gone everywhere.
So you're a relationship
But
broker. Like you'll
I'm
do
a
anything
relationship broker.
for your
Yeah, I will do
relationships.
anything for my sphere of influence and my people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if that means jumping in the car and driving to Palm Coast for a closing, and I actually got a client that I'm working with on a deal right now up there that I've done multiple deals with him up there. And if that's what it takes, he knows. And maybe he'll watch this later, but he knows I'll jump in my car, I'll make the trip, and I'll hold his hand through that closing. Even though he's done it a couple times already and he's got his feet more than wet and he knows what's going on, still, I'm driving over there, hold your hand through it, and of course collect my check as soon as the closing is over.
Yeah.
I try not to let it all slip through the rocks. But for the most part here locally at home, I do a lot of Miami Gardens. I do a lot of Hialeah, the unincorporated date area 33015, which is like from I-75 down to, you know, 57th Avenue, where kind of Miami Gardens starts taking over, and like Miami Lakes merges with. So I do a lot of that. My office is located in Miami Lakes, so I'm you know, kind of there in the middle of the buzz. My kids go to school in Hialeah, right there, 33015, and that's kind of like my sweet spot. But again, anywhere that, you know, my sphere or anybody that, you know, gets referred to me needs it, you know, we're gonna do the business. You
That's
know,
awesome.
there's, to me, no business is bad business. If it's gonna generate dollars and it's gonna, you know, get the wheels moving, you know, not spinning in the same place, but it's gonna give us some traction and we can go, I'm all for it, dude. Doesn't matter where it's taking us. As long as my license lets me close there, we're going.
We're good to go.
We could go, man. We could go for sure. So, you know, and I love what I do, man. I love what I do. I love, you know, helping people and explaining to them and giving them like the ins and the outs. A lot of people that you talk to, you know, I have a lot of experience with first-time buyers, a lot of experience with, you know, empty nesters that you know are going to sell their house and downsize. And I love, you know, that's kind of been my niche without it even being really my niche throughout my career, because I'm able to show them like, hey, listen, you don't need this house anymore, dude. Come on, let's get you some money in your pocket that you're going to be able to use and enjoy, and maybe you can even help your kids and your grandkids out with some debt and some of the things that they got going on. You can buy yourself something free and clear. Just worry about an HOA payment. No more cutting grass. No more, you know, it's a lot of things that are going to come off your plate.
Yeah.
So I've helped a lot of you know, empty nesters downsize. I've helped a lot of new buyers. A lot of my friends, you know, that in my sphere, I've sold them a property. They called me to relist a property and sell it and buy them another one. So that's kind of been my niche throughout. You know, knowing so many people and having so many good relationships throughout the years has really helped, because I you know, as soon as I came up with the idea of getting my license, which was when I came back from Texas. I was in Texas for a little bit. I don't know if I mentioned it to you. Right before getting into real estate, I was in the construction industry and I went over there for a couple of months. So right when I came back, I got my real estate license. I was like, I made the decision to get my real estate license, and I was like, okay, I gotta tell everybody, because, you know, yeah, I know a lot of people, but everybody just knows me as Rolly with the blue SI, because I was super into cars my whole life. I had always had a 2000 Civic SI, you know, and everybody's like, oh yeah, Rolly with the blue SI. So I didn't want to be known as that. I wanted people to know, hey, this guy means business now. And I went out, bro, and started planting those seeds, and they started to flourish and you know, started to work out, and eventually I was able to, you know, put together a pretty good career with people that I knew. So
That's
every time I
amazing.
work with somebody, for the most part, it's fun, because if they're not part of my sphere, somebody that I know, they came referred from somebody that I know or already worked with, and they're like, hey, listen, you know, just pull up to this guy and hang your gloves on the wall and let him do the fighting for you. He's got you covered. And it eliminates a lot of that resistance, that initial resistance and stuff that we get from clients, and you know, like on a brand new listing appointment, somebody you've never met before, there's a lot of resistance that can bog you down, your presentation, all that stuff. that it's not so much when these people are already like, hey, go over there with your eyes closed. This is it. This guy's good. You don't have to stress anything out. He's gonna take you from contract to close without a hitch. So that helps.
Said, bro, all these people I never met coming into my house, I gotta let them know that this bitch is protected.
No, I love having like playing with my rifle and stuff. I got an AR too.
Yeah.
And my wife is like, hey, you know, we can't have this thing out, so I gotta have all my shit tucked away. But it's funny whenever I'm like messing with it or you know doing something. Not too long ago, I was putting a flashlight on my AR, and my daughter's like, oh wow, it's so cool. My son comes and I gave them both the gun. They were like holding it and posing and taking pictures.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, how cool, man. I wish like when I was 9 or 3 years old, like my son is, that my dad would have had all these cool toys, you know, and I would have seen these things. But
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's super fun. I always had a BB gun. When we lived out in the country, I had a BB gun, a Red Ryder. And I would just hunt chipmunks with that thing, birds. And then I upgraded to a 22. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Rabbits, just anything around the house. Because we were like in the country.
Yeah,
like,
in the country.
way
So
out, so
you're-
it was so much
That's
fun.
amazing.
And then I got really bad at shooting because I didn't shoot for a while. But then when I was back in the military, I really learned how to shoot.
Honed in your skills.
All the breathing, all this and all that. Like we would have a full set on, full kit, body armor, helmet,
Wow.
the whole shebang, and they would like. It's called like fuck us up. Like we'd be doing burpees and all this shit, working out, getting tired.
Fuck.
And then like we had to pull a sled with a 200-pound body in it, which was a dummy, like half a mile, and then we had to get down and shoot, and you're just it's like trying to shoot like this. It's like whoa.
Wow, bro.
So that was super
But
cool.
I bet the experience, the knowledge, and the commitment that you get out of an experience like that.
The commitment is the big thing. The
is
discipline, the commitment.
The discipline and commitment is second to none, man.
When you come out, you appreciate a lot of things in life that you take for granted. Like your
That you
story coming
second
from
guess.
Cuba and all those things. Nowhere near as traumatizing what I went through, but like it's kind of like a reminder like, hey, there's no fences up here. Like I was trapped in there doing all this stuff. So that was really good. Bro, the first time, so I wrote down 2 notes and then we'll wrap it up. But the first time I was introduced to weed, rolled weed in notebook paper.
Oh my God! I heard stories about that, dude. When I was in school here in Miami, still, but I never saw it. But I heard about that, and I'm like, people like notebook paper. Another story that I heard was, you know, when you go to like those shitty neighborhoods and you go to the gas station and you buy a beer and they put it in that paper bag.
Yeah,
I heard
bro.
them getting that paper bag and like crumbling it up to like it's almost like a mash and then rolling it in that. I'm like, what the hell?
Nobody knew about like wraps or anything
What
like
is
that.
that?
So you're smoking out of a notebook paper? That was
my
wild.
goodness. That is
But-
crazy.
And then one time we didn't have a lighter, so we were like 15, 14, like just didn't have our license, but close to having our license. No lighter.
Whose dad's car are we taking?
Yeah, we hop in my buddy's brother's car and we're like driving to the gas station. I'm in the passenger seat, my buddy's driving, and we're like, what if we get pulled over? Like, dude, what if a cop pulls like a 15-year-old kid over with no license, no temps, nothing?
Jesus
So,
Christ.
and then I didn't know if you had to be 18 or 21 to buy a lighter or whatever.
Oh my
So he's
goodness.
staying in the car. I have to go in and get this lighter, and I'm like acting so weird. I'm like, give me a lighter.
Sus as fuck.
Yeah. Do I have to put down like a fake ID? Like, what I gotta do here?
God, bro,
So
that is so funny.
That was a crazy experience. And then let's hit on 2008. So you were mentioning 2008, like the crisis and what it did to your family, essentially. My mom bought a ton of real estate in 2008 because she said that you could just say you made $400,000, take that to the bank, and you get a loan. You didn't have to prove nothing.
It was a
So
wild,
she was
wild west,
buying
man.
this. So she was in 2008. I don't know. She would have been mid-20s, right? Okay. 2 kids. So she had me at 18, my sister at 21. So she's single mother trying to figure out all this stuff, and she's just buying real estate. And thankfully, it worked out really well for her. She still has a lot of the properties today that she purchased back then. But
nice.
I mean, it took people 2 ways. Some people suffered from it, didn't make it through.
Absolutely.
Some people just loaded up and just put their arms around all this property because they could get the loans and do all this
and figure it out, man, and figure it out.
I wish, I guess that comes with pros and cons, right? Like, the government learned a lot from 2008, and I think that's going to insulate us from another downturn of that effect in real estate. But at the same time, to get into property, to qualify to purchase property, you can't just go and show up. You got to get bank statements, do the whole spiel.
Now it's a whole ordeal.
It brings two different sides, and I think it's a double-edged sword, but those are the two notes. That's all I have.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you on that. Just to touch base a little bit more on that. It's so strict now, and it was so easy back then. But, touching base on the 2008, bubble burst, that issue didn't come from 2006, 7, or 8. No, that issue started in the 70s. That the way these mortgages were getting backed was not properly done. And at the time, it seemed like a great idea. And they were like, hey, this is great. Let's run with it. We're going to be able to do all these loans now. And 40, 50 years down the line, they're like, oh shit, kind of like cast iron. Yeah. It was supposed to last 50 years, and now all these people are cutting up their houses to redo the plumbing. So there was an issue. It wasn't going to last forever, and to touch base on that, I mean, maybe not everybody has heard or seen that, but there's a movie that's awesome, and I always tell everybody to watch that explains The Big Short, man. Yeah. You've seen it. So,
it's a great movie.
So, it's a great movie, and it kind of gives you, I can't believe still today, especially here in Miami, there's a lot of people that never even watched that movie or even heard of it. But I tell everybody, hey, watch it, and it gives you a little bit more of an insight and clarity of what really happened in 2008.
Because everyone just sees it.
Because everybody was just like, oh, it's the same thing as today. Everybody's selling too expensive, asking too money for their houses. Idiots are paying it, and then now everything is going to crash just like 2008. Yeah. No, guys. In 2008, I would go to the bank and say, hey, I'm a realtor. I make $1.5 million a year, and I have a landscaping company on the side that makes $2 million a year.
They'd be like, okay, loan. $5 million loan.
$5 million? No, you can buy yourself a $10 million house, my friend. Go do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
That's not today. Today, they're like, oh, you want a loan? Oh, you want to buy a house? Do me a favor. Bend over, put your pants down, spread them. Let me see.
Yeah, everything.
That's everything,
and there's so many systems in place, like, behind the scenes that y'all don't even know about. Like I don't even know if
fraud guards. I mean,
LexisNexis, bro. Like, you go buy a property, and they know when you list it for rent. They know like anything that happens. They know
there's
if you
so
signed an addition on.
Today.
Like, you think you might be getting away with some certain things, but highly unlikely with what goes on in the back end that I guess loan officers have a little bit more exposure to.
A little bit more insight, yeah.
Because, dude, when we pull statements, when we do all those things, it's wild.
Yeah, man, and the stuff you run into, and then, trying to again navigate in the gray to try to figure something out. Because today, it's not like you can, you have to be a robot and do everything by the book. There's little gray areas, but it's not like back in the day. Back in the day, there wasn't gray areas. There was black areas that everybody was working in, and then that was that. Like, nothing was right. Like, I remember talking to, one of the lenders I work with now, and I've been working with him pretty much since I started. He's older. He's been doing this 30 plus years, and he tells me, he was one of the first guys that took me serious when I first got into the business. Side note on that. And that's why I still work with him and why I'm super faithful and loyal to him. And the day he retires, then I'll be like, okay, no more loans that way. Now I can work with multiple lends, figure out whatever I want to do. But he was like, listen, back in the day, I go to to the salon where I cut my hair, and my friend from the salon, we were super tight. I would just tell her, hey, listen, I need, to put this person to say here they work with you and they make X amount of money. And he was like, I was closing loans left and right. It was so good, so much so that he opened up his own mortgage company, brought his wife, his daughter, his half of his family to work with him. They were the processors, the underwriters, everything was all in house, and it grew and it got super big, and then reality sets in, and it's crazy, man. It's crazy, but
that's wild.
It is what it is.
Times. All right, Rolly.
All right, man.
Thank you so much for coming
on.
No,
man. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great experience talking to, just smashing it up and talking a little bit about everything, man. It's awesome.
Lots of fun. Good podcast. Where can the audience find you?
All right. So if you guys follow me on social media, Instagram, you can check out my Instagram at Rolly, ROLY, Sells Miami. I also got a YouTube channel that I started up. It's pretty interesting. I got some info on there, a little bit about Miami, a little bit of info for buyers and sellers. So check it out. And that's at Rolly Sells Miami as well on YouTube. Facebook, you can find me, or you can always shoot me a call or a text, 786-306-9335.
Awesome. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all that information down below if you're on YouTube here.
Awesome.
So that'll be right there. So just scroll down in the description. It'll be good to go. But thanks so much, man.
Thank you. Take care.